Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be going over some of the solar panels that I use and the functions that I use them for and why I use them and the differences between them. This is not going to be an in-depth review on each and every single solar panel, but more of my opinion on why I use them and why I believe they are effective. Some of these panels I use for recreation use, others I use for work, some for both, and others for backpacking, etc., etc. Starting with the middle one, this solar panel is the 3.5 Goal Zero solar panel. It's been well used and well worn. I have several types of these panels in each different kit that I have. This is a 3.5 watt panel. As you can see, it's pretty much beat up from the years of use that I put it through. On the back, I have this Guide 10 Plus, which is also made by Goal Zero, and I have the Renogi mini battery bank charger here, 2000 milliamp battery charger. Inside I have 4 AA batteries and loops and various cables to connect out to my electronic devices and ham radios. And it stores neatly in this mesh pocket in the back. I use this one the most because it's the smallest yet most efficient for my use in terms of the weight and what I can bring with me and how it fits onto my pack, which is important. I don't like carrying solar panels that kind of are not fitting exactly in a nice contour or a loose manner on my backpack. I like to secure them down pretty well and be able to access them at the same time. So that's why I carry this little 3.5 watt kit right here. Now this did come with the Switch 8, which I'm still using, but it's in another kit right now, so I just have a smaller type battery inside of it. So normally that's what this kit was normally coming with. I upgraded the Switch 8 to the Guide 10 in here now, which is what you see. And I found that that works as an emergency backup battery charger, and the fact that it charges AA batteries in a 6 to 8 hour time period can be pretty useful, especially with this when it outputs USB as well. So there's a little battery junction box in this one, and it has several different cables that come out. It's got a USB out, and then it's got a DC out, and then it's got a chain link for other panels to chain up to it, so you can daisy chain them into a main output bus. But for now, I just use this as an individual item itself. So that's the Goal Zero 3.5. Next up is a more recent addition to the Goal Zero line. This has been out for a couple of years, but you'll see this more likely in stores. It's lighter, it's thinner. It went through some changes based off of this one. This is the previous generation of this model. This is a Nomad 7 Plus. It's a thinner one. It's also got this new laminate on it. As you can see, I've scratched this one up on the trails as well. It doesn't heal as much as, or not heal, but it shows a little bit more than the previous models. When you scratch them up, they're not as big and indenty. I feel like this laminate on here is not as durable as the previous model because the scratches just stay on here and you can't get them off, and it reduces your effectiveness when it comes to pulling in light. Now this one's magnetically sealed, much like the other two. Originally Goal Zero in their first models, and sometimes even in their second generation models, had Velcro attachments. So they went through a lot of changes in the different solar panel models, and these are some of the later changes that you see here. This also has a Guide 10 Plus in the back. This also has a mesh pocket, which is pretty tight and pretty small. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of items in there. This has a smart junction box, which is a USB output only. This panel only outputs via USB, not DC and USB, unlike the other panel. So there's a smart charger junction box that goes into here, which then links up to anything that you want to charge through here. So it's kind of, I'll take it out real quick if I can pull it out through here. Right now I have the Guide 10 Plus plugged into the DC out. And the DC out, you can either use it as a USB right here. This is the smart junction box, and this is the USB out. Now when you buy this kit, it doesn't come with the Guide 10 unless it specifically says it does in certain kit modifications, but I haven't seen that in the stores. I've only seen this being sold by itself, and this is what you will get. So you'd have to unplug the USB here to access the DC out. So when I said before that it's USB only, that's because they only offer that kind of option via the junction box. So I'll try to put that back and away. I'm going to try to replug this back in here. And I have the AAA battery adapter in there. The Guide 10 Plus does come with a bunch of accessories too with it, cables and whatnot to help you charge whatever batteries you want to put in there. You can charge AA's or AAA nickel metal hydrides in there. So that is the Goal Zero Nomad 7 Plus. I carry this on my main work backpack, and I have used it out in search and rescue and just working out on the trails and whatnot. It has held up pretty well. I would not prefer that it be made out of this kind of laminate because once it gets damaged, it stays damaged pretty visibly, and it can compromise the weather sealing on it, obviously. And I don't know how long this would last in the heat and sun. After a while, this might start, this material, I'm not sure if it will last as long as the previous generation material. But it's worked very well throughout the years. It's lightweight, as you can see, much more lighter than the other materials, and it still produces the correct amount of wattage that I need. Coming up over here is the previous generation, the Nomad 7 Plus. It's also magnetically sealed here in the center. It's got loopholes like the previous generations, and the newer Plus one that I showed you doesn't have the loopholes. It just has cut out, laser cut parts in the plastic there. So this has been rarely used. I like to try to keep this one in good condition. I still have the plastic film on it. You're supposed to remove it, but I found that it works pretty effectively on the unit, so I don't even bother doing that. Like the other two, it does have a back mesh pocket, although with a little bit more space. And you can see I have another Guide 10 Plus in there. I have a universal lithium-ion / nickel metal hydride charger in here by Soulshine. These are kind of getting dated now. There are more efficient options out there for charging single batteries. This in particular has a 12 volt or 9 volt socket adapter, if you will. You can run some 9 volt stuff off of this. You won't be able to run too many 12 volt appliances off of this, off the solar panel alone. So you need to daisy chain this and to get more milliamps and voltages out of it, basically. It does have a USB out on the junction box here, and then you have another DC plug via the junction box over here as well. And I put the extra cables in the pouch here. So I kind of like this one a little bit better than the Nomad 7 Plus. Nomad 7 Plus just has that one DC cable plugged into that USB junction box. It's not a multi-junction box like the rest of these. So you're only limited to like charging one thing at a time. This I can plug in the Guide 10 Plus and a USB item, and it'll split the energy into both, which can be useful in a pinch if you want to charge multiple things at once. It'll take a lot longer to charge them, obviously, but you get two things done for one in a time period if you're looking to do that. Now, I use this for my travel bag, which is TSA safe. So I bring this on and I throw it in my laptop bag, and it fits perfectly with the items I have in the laptop bag, and off I go. So I keep that in my Osprey Talon 44 bag. Next up is a different brand of solar panel. These are made by Renogi. Renogi has been in the solar panel game for a while, at least a few years from what I've seen. I have some of their bigger panels. I have a 100-watt solar panel outside, and I'm using that to charge a battery bank in here. So I decided to try out their smaller eflex 5 model, which is this one right here. It's just a basic panel, much like the Nomad 7 Plus, but it's only one half of it, as you can see. And on the back, it's only got one junction box with the USB out. So essentially took the concept of the Nomad 7 and put it into a smaller box here, and no extra cable to plug in or whatnot. Although it does lack that DC cable out, where you can swap it to a USB or to a DC. I like that option, but this is, if they were going to go for something very small and lightweight, I would recommend something like this. Just one little battery junction or USB junction box out. Of course, there's a little 5-watt panel. It does work well. I've tested it, and I feel like this laminate is a little bit more rugged than the Goal Zero. I mean, I haven't gotten this scratched up yet, but it feels like it could be a little bit more rugged. So it's a very lightweight, very simple panel, and again, it's cut out on the edges, unlike having the little string tie-outs to last your bag. You have cutouts instead. I feel like that's a better option in terms of mating to a bag or whatnot, attaching it to a bag really. So that's the Renogi eflex 5. Moving along, we have a little guy here. This is kind of like a self-contained unit. It's basically an emergency multi-day charger. It's got 2 AA batteries in it. It's made by Ultralast, and it's their solar panel model. And what it's supposed to do is supposed to charge up the 2 AA batteries here, and then from there it's supposed to output via USB port here. Now there's no charge controller in this, much like the eflex 5, so you have to be careful about charging AA batteries in this particular model. The Guide 10 Pluses do have some sort of, I believe, battery termination voltage checker, but I'm not too sure if it turns off with a low amount voltage. I haven't checked that part yet, but in the years that I've used it, it seems to have worked pretty well and hasn't damaged the batteries that I've used in it. This specifically says it doesn't have any voltage regulation or any kind of smart battery checking device in it. So basically you have an in and out switch. You switch it to in, where it takes the input via either USB or the sun, or you switch it to out and the LED light comes on. This also lights up when you're near a sun source as green. So it also works from what I've seen when I'm using the output, and I can also charge it via the solar panel at the same time. Now the milliamps is very, very low in this. Unlike the other models, this is only about 150 milliamps at most, if you're lucky. This is more designed to be like, hey, I'm going to charge these AA batteries up and then put it in a separate USB bank to output some solar charge, or in my case, in my ham radio or my light. So it's not really designed to output to electronics that use a high amperage drawing rate. So this is only really supposed to power up the low amperage drawing USB devices. So, but it's only about 20 bucks. It's small. I got it recently. Works okay. I have it in one of my kits. I'm kind of playing around with it, trying it out. I got it because it's very small compared to some of these other kits. It's a very lightweight, small option. And I like being able to charge my AA's. Next up is a homemade item. I made this last year out of a 6 by 4 by 2 inch tin Altoids type can, or a box if you will, but this had a clear plastic thing on here, and I put a I believe it was a 5 volt by 150 milliamp panel or 300 milliwatt panel on here, and I took an old USB AA emergency charger and I rewired it through here so it can output through the USB in the front here, and I slide these switches on and off based on what I have. And I don't know if you can see, but let me switch the light on here so you can see it lighting up. You might be able to see it through there, but it does work and does output current, and the solar panel is pretty sensitive. And I also built in a 4 AA battery bank to go through here to power the USB port as well, and or be charged by the solar panel. Much like the Ultralast solar panel battery bank, this also has no regulation circuitry in it. I didn't have enough room to really get in there, or the skills to really micromanage that. So I just left it as is, and I figure in this kind of situation, I keep the batteries in there for a certain amount of time before I took them out. So I don't really need any device to measure what the voltages on my batteries are. So that is a homemade circuit solar panel little box that I made, and it works pretty well. Next up, I have one of my favorite USB banks. This is a PowerFilm AA USB bank, and they don't sell these on Amazon anymore. I thought they did before, but these are actually rare now. I'm not sure if they're going to get them back in, if PowerFilm is going to hold them in stock, but if you see one for about $30 or so, you might want to grab it and take it, because it's worth quite a few pennies on Amazon right now. There's a little USB charging indicator on the side here. I don't know if you can see it, but it probably is charging right now, or trying to charge anyway. It'll start blinking when it's charging. Yeah, you can kind of see that. So it charges 2 AA batteries, and then it outputs about 500 milliamps out the USB junction box here. Now this won't work unless you have the USB batteries connected and it completes the circuitry inside. So this is really only supposed to be used as a emergency backup charger, much like the Ultralast USB solar bank that I have, except this one actually outputs up to 500 milliamps, which is better than the other one. Although, looking at the size comparison, this is going to take a hell of a lot longer to charge up than this. This is a 5 watt, I believe, or 1.5 watt rather, panel, and it's very thin and very flexible. Now, PowerFilm is a quality company from what I've noticed, and I have used their products for about 2 years or so, and I find them very reliable in the field, especially when I'm doing ham radio operations and whatnot. But that is the PowerFilm USB AA solar charger. It works pretty well. And a little size comparison there for the Ultralast one. This is about $20, and I got this for about $36 at the time. So I use this as a throw in my bag if I don't have a solar panel and go out and hike or whatever. So it's a good EDC hiking panel to take with you. And then if you're backpacking, I think that would be your best bet to use. Next up is a PowerFilm F15-300 panel. This is a 5 watt panel. It's 0.3 amps at 15.4 volts without anything on the load. This outputs, as it says, 15.4 volts. I chose this because I wanted a very small panel for one of my radios. And unlike the Goal Zero, some of the Goal Zero kits, this only comes with a 12 volt socket adapter. So you got to be able to take a USB adapter in here to output to USB. Now it does work effectively. These panels are pretty rugged, although you don't want to crease them or crinkle them. You want to keep them relatively stable like that. It does hold up to weather and elements and whatnot. And does get the light too. In low light conditions, these panels are really good. Now they're a little bit different than the other panels that we looked at. The other panels are very hardened. Most of them are monocrystalline as opposed to polycrystalline. I don't know what the technology is in these cells here, but these only last about 5 years in direct sunlight, total time amount approximately, whereas the other ones will probably last you about 10 to 15 years, according to various literatures online. You can double check that to make sure that that's accurate, but that's what I've heard and read from some sites. So, but I have this one. I use it for my ham radio operations and as a trickle charger when I plug in a USB adapter into this port here, and I can get a consistent voltage coming out of this. Now it does pulse a little bit, but it's good for charging USB power banks and whatnot if I need to. And it does have the marine type connectors on here, which are weatherproof. The Delphi connectors, I believe these are called. And you can buy parts off of eBay and make your own cables to interface with this system. The junction box, for lack of a better term, is here, and it's an actual standard DC out type cable, and you can modify it to whatever you want. So you do have a little bit more flexibility in terms of soldering different cables and whatnot with these PowerFilm solar panels here. Next up is another PowerFilm product. It's the PowerFilm 10 watt F15-600 model, and I use this exclusively with my ham radio go bag. I have another one in the go bag over in the room here, and this is a great product for charging. Let me get my other extra battery out here. For charging my Energizer. This is the XP8000, I believe. I forget which model number it is, but you can charge it based on the inputs here, and it can output up to DC 9 volt to 12 volt or 16 to 20 volt. It has two options to output. And I can run off of my ham radio with this QRP, which is 5 watts or less, for at least a few hours plugged into this panel here. So this greatly extends my radio operating capabilities, this solar panel here. I'll open it up so you can see what it looks like. It's quite big. You're not going to be able to get all of it on camera, but that is the solar panel. Again, same technology as the other two PowerFilm products. It's very rugged, very reliable. Folds up very nice and small. For the weight versus the power production, you can't beat these solar panels. Now there are other companies that are probably contracted with the DoD to make very strong military standard panels. I believe these might have been one of the companies that did it. I think there was another brand that did similar roll-up technologies. I don't remember their name, but you can probably find it online too. I use this for my hammer radio kit, and it works very well. Very small, very lightweight. You can even just pack it up in a backpacking trip and take it out and use it. I would recommend any of the PowerFilm products for lightweight backpacking because they do save a lot of weight, and you do gain a lot of power for the amount of weight you bring. Again, this one also uses a Delphi connector here via the junction box, so you can, again, customize your plugs that come out from the solar panel if you know how to solder and build wires and whatnot, or maybe buy some pre-made kits. I'm not sure what's out there in terms of all the options for this, but I have made my own cables for this, so I do appreciate the amount of customization that comes with this kit here. So that is pretty much almost all the solar panels I have and use. I have a few more that I haven't shown here today, but I figured I'd just go over them briefly and say why I use them, why they're effective, and each one has a different role. Some of them are more geared towards lightweight operations and higher voltages. Others are geared for just USB recharging my power banks or charging AA batteries. Now, obviously, the PowerFilm ones, they're a little bit more higher in the voltage, but they can charge AA battery packs too if you have step-down voltage regulators and whatnot. So you also want to be careful with that. And again, they do come with like a 12-volt socket adapter, so you can obviously take a USB adapter from here, run it into a power bank like the Guide 10 Plus, and charge up the Guide 10 Plus because it takes a USB in as well. So you can buy like USB AA battery chargers, put a USB 9-volt or 12-volt socket adapter in here, run that into your battery bank, and bam, you're ready and rock and rolling to go with the PowerFilm ones. Or you can just use the DC out to a 12-volt battery pack, which I have here on the side. I use this for a variety of reasons, and mainly for ham radio, but it's kind of beat up, but it's got obviously AA batteries in here. It's a 12-volt battery pack. You got a DC in. This can charge this up pretty reasonably, and it does have a voltage regulation circuit on the output on here. Input, I'm not worried about it as much, though it does appear to have a voltage regulation circuit on here as well to check the batteries when they're fully charged. It does give you a indication at least when it's fully charged. So that, like I said, there's flexibility with these solar panels, and if you're not looking to do that, you can just obviously buy a already made kit, and you can buy the 4AA little battery bank inside with it for an extra cost as well. So those are the solar panels I use. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, let me know.